Good evening, gentlemen. it's it's Saturday night. It's the 6th of August, and it's 10 o'clock in the evening. And I hope everybody's well. I I'm not feeling too good right now. Be honest with you. I had I had fish and chips in Weatherspoons today, and it should be called something else. Fish and go to the toilet, something like that. I'm not feeling very well, but anyway, I'll survive. I've got a nice beer here. It's Saturday evening. This is Steady Eddie Live, and as anyone knows, with this channel by now, we talk about other things. It's not necessarily a travel channel. We talk about other things. Tonight, I'm going to talk about movies, gangster movies, those absolute classics from the last 50 years, the modern era. Okay, first of all, Ian UK, nice to hear from you. Fanny, hello, Daddy, nice to hear from you. Chaz Brown, Gaz, Mal, Dickie B, Dickie B, who's in sunny South Wales. Good evening. McLaren F1 race, nice to hear from you, mate. Lee James, Keith Floyd, thinking of a great movie. Okay, I probably will mention it. Wayne M, Yoz Travels, Tom Streeter, Farang Travels, Bryn Roberts, Yoz Travels. I think I already said that, didn't I? Lee James. Let's see. Aaron Mack, Angels with Dirty Faces, still one of the best. No, I think this is the modern era. This is, I'm too young really to appreciate movies like that. Bryn Roberts. This is always like he does watch the channel. He watches the channel. So Gaz77. I went to Asda's today and I got £278.34 of alcohol and food for free as I dressed up in a pink dress and a blue wig. Okay, I think you're a candidate for Spot the Looney. Now it's time to spot the loony. Nick Ross, nice to hear from you. North Korea bound. Mark Holler, good evening, Mark. Nice to hear from you. McLaren F1 race. Okay, so like you say, I mean, this is about movies. We talk about this. You can't please everyone. Some people like talking about movies. Some people hate the subject of movies. You can't please everyone. Yesterday, we talked about a little pop-up, talked about a few scandals. Monday night, we talked about football, those girls, winning the Euro Championship, which the guys, whereas the male footballers can't seem to win an egg and spoon race, okay? But tonight, this is movies. I love movies. I love gangster movies. I love the modern era. So these are all adult gangster movies, and they go way back from the last 50 years. I don't really do the gangster movies before that, simply because that wasn't really my generation, okay? Paul Hoskin, nice to hear from you. Okay, so I'm going to name my top 10 favorite gangster movies in the past 50 years. And that's quite a long time. I don't think you need to go back any further than that for the last 50 years. If I've missed anything, then tell me about it. We'll talk about it, but it's a personal choice. And I think that the 10 that I'm going to choose are the essential gangster movies from the top 50 years, okay? Cats and Good Coffee is here. Yogi Bear is here. Okay, so number one, we're going to go actually more than 50 years. We're going to go back to 1971 for this one. 51 years, in fact, for a movie that still holds up and is still a powerful gangster movie. It stars a famous British actor with a Cockney voice who somehow lost his Newcastle accent. Okay, and it is the wonderful, timeless classic Get Carter, okay, 1971. Now, you got to understand that at the time when films like this were made, the British film industry was, it was in a really bad state. It had no money. It had all this talent of actors and filmmakers and everything, and yet they still struggled to make movies simply because they had no money. But this movie was made in 1971, and I can tell you that even today, this film will hold up as a really powerful, adult, non-patronizing, really gritty movie. So if it seems that way today, what did it feel like 51 years ago? Get Carter, of course, tells the oldest story in the book, the oldest one in the book, revenge. Michael Caine, forget about his Cockney accent and his Mac. Comes from Newcastle originally. He becomes a London gangster. He loses his Geordie accent and adopts a Cockney one, presumably. And what happens is that his brother, who's still in Newcastle, is killed by what he believes is gangsters. The police won't do anything about it, so he's going to do something about it. He travels back to Newcastle to sort the bad guys out. It's really, really it is an awesome movie, absolutely awesome movie. A few comments here. Let me see now. A few comments here. Farang Travels, Get Carter, awesome. I tell you what, when I first seen this film, it was in 1976 and I was 14 years old. It was actually its first TV screening. In them days, after 5 years, you could show a film. I think it had a couple of little snippets. They cut out some of the violence. But I watched this movie when I was just 14. I watched it on the TV, on its first TV premiere, and I was stunned. Absolutely amazing movie. Michael Caine gives an amazing performance. Ian Hendry, Brett Eklund. It's got really quite an amazing cast. But it's as revenge movies go, revenge is the oldest story in a book. Revenge movies don't really come any better than this. Get Carter, an absolute classic. Let's see what I've got to say. Yours Travels, never seen it, too far back in time for me. Really? Chaz Brown, good film. Get Carter. It wasn't filmed around Newcastle. I believe it was, yeah. Let me see now. Okay. Let me see now. Who's this? Farang Travels. Don't give the ending away. I will not give the end. For those who've never seen, I will not give the ending away, of course. Except that, the ending just left me absolutely stunned. But I was only 14 at the time. But it's still an amazing film. Chaz Brown, I think that car park in Newcastle was demolished. Okay. Danish Bacon, nice to hear from you, mate. Let's see. It's Gaz 77, you ever had a dream about Susan Boyle? I'd call that a nightmare, to be honest with you. I think that's the correct phrase. So Get Carter. I mean, this film, I don't actually know how successful it was. It probably was very, very successful in British cinemas. And then I don't know if it really played much to an American. Like I say, the British film industry was in a very, very, very bad state at that time. But for them to produce a movie like this, at this quality, absolutely amazing. So Get Carter, one of the 10 best gangster films of all kinds. Brian Street, thank you for that super chat, Brian Street. Very, very generous of you. Legend, The Craze. You never know, mate. We've got a long way to go. It's going to be a very long night. Thanks for that, mate, anyway. Let me see. Cat and Good Coffee. Mark Hollick, Eddie, would The Irishman be on your list? I'd have to say no. I have actually mentioned The Irishman on another stream, and I have to say that I'm a huge fan of Scorsese and all of the people who were involved in that movie. But I think it was ultimately a bit disappointing. We'll talk about other movies, about that breed of actors along the way. So Nick Ross, The Long Good Friday. Some people say that that's the best British thriller ever. I don't agree with that. It's a good movie, but I don't really think it's a great movie. It's not on my list. But Get Carter, top 10 best essential gangster movies of the last 50 years, and that is the first, and it holds up alongside any of them. Absolutely magnificent. Okay, so what else have we got now? Let me see now. Yeah, let's see. What is this? It was this. The car park and Get Cars was in Gateshead and demolished now. Really. Mark, I didn't think so. You didn't think the Godfather would be on the list? No, sorry, the Irishman on the list. No. I think I have to say that was 3 hours plus of disappointment, especially when you consider the amazing talent that actually went into that. You know what I mean? And nobody was. Who's this? Danish Bacon. Did you ever see A First They Killed My Father? I did see that. Not a gangster movie, but it was actually directed by Angelina Jolie. I saw him put on pen in a hostel. Ruined the vibe. Powerful stuff. Okay, so First on the list, a absolute unequivocal British classic on the list. Even all these years later, still holds up. Mean, moody, and magnificent. So where are we going to go next? 1972. Well, predictable. It's predictable stuff. It's predictable, really. It's got to be. It's got to be the godfather of all gangster movies. Oh, magnificent. Moody Marlon. Absolutely Moody Marlon. Moody Marlon and the cast of James Caan, who is deceased now, Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, other actors, some great lesser known but instantly recognizable faces. Of course, The Godfather. It's a candidate for the greatest gangster movie of all time, simply because it was based on a book by Mario Puzo. It was raw. There was nothing patronizing about this movie. You really got the feeling that this is the way that it was. But it wasn't just a gangster, bang bang pull the trigger gangster movie. It was also a movie about family and honor, and it was so brilliantly made by Francis Ford Coppola. Coppola was actually very modest about this movie. He said, all as I did was just film the book. But, nevertheless, he proved himself to be an absolutely outstanding filmmaker. But at the center of The Godfather, of course, was possibly the greatest performance by any actor ever. It was Marlon's film. I mean, even though he's actually not in the movie for that much of its almost 3 hours, his performance just burns into the memory. The guy was absolutely magnificent. Marlon, don't forget, in the early 1950s, brought in a new style of acting, method acting, and he was just a sensation, an absolute sensation. He made some other movies, some rather hit and miss movies along the way after his initial success, and his career was really on a decline. A lot of people were starting to forget about Marlon Brando by the late 60s, early 70s. But when he was in this film, all of a sudden, bang, he was back in business. People were realizing what a mesmerizing actor this is. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So that's The Godfather, 1972. Okay, let's see. Lieutenant Columbo's Glass Eye, first Scorsese classic of Mean Street. Okay. Not to everybody's taste, Mean Street. I know that Mean Street was a great movie, but I haven't actually included that simply because people who are fans of Scorsese, not really, the control, the amazing quality of his filmmaking was not really there, even though it's a great movie in other ways. But I wouldn't say it's one of the top 10 simply because I think it's very dated, that movie now. He obviously went on to better things. Mark Oleg, I posted Goodfellas on your post this morning. I like that movie. Everyone. I think Goodfellas is going to appear somehow, isn't it? Absolutely. Nick Ross, Layer Cake. That's a lesser known movie, that is, with Daniel Craig. And who else is in that movie? I know Daniel Craig is in it. I like Layer Cake. Any movie that you watch twice is a good movie, and I've watched that movie twice. Layer Cake's a fine movie. I don't think it's one of the essential gangster movies, but it is a fine movie. Ian UK. Ed, what about The Departed? Won an Oscar Best Picture. Departed was a marvelous movie. I'm not quite sure that actually qualifies. I don't see that as a gangster movie. I actually see that as a police thriller. I think there's a difference. But it's an amazing movie. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Who's there? Ichiko. Did you get your own hair, Eddie? Yeah, absolutely. My own hair, my real hair. Cats and Good Coffee. I missed this one. Super Eddie, did you like American Gangster? The cousin of Denzel Washington used to get soapy massages in Bangkok. Really? American Gangster, starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, is an excellent movie, and it was a movie made by the wonderful Ridley Scott. It is a really fine movie. It's not actually one of my own personal favorites, but it is a film I've watched it before, and if the time is right, I would watch it again. I don't think it's a great movie, but I don't think it's quite up to the quality of some of the other ones in the list. I don't think it's quite achieved classic status. Okay, let's see now. Quite a few of these. Mark Oleg, I'm writing my Friday column about 1972. What a coincidence. Mark Oleg, who is an expert on telecommunications, writes a fantastic column. You can see it on his Facebook page. And it's really, you'll learn a lot about telecommunications and many other things, those things related. Absolutely fantastic. I look forward to it, Mark. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Nomad Overseas, I love films, but for some reason I've never seen any of the Godfather films, Raging Bull or The Deer Hunter. We'll have to sort out. You haven't lived, mate. Get out there and check them out. Who's this one? Okay. Let me see now. Let me see. Oh, terrific. Oh, nice to have you. The horror. The Patriots one. The best scene in The Godfather is when they cut the horse's head and put it to bed. Now, whether that, this is supposed to be Frank Sinatra, isn't it? This is supposed to be the character of Johnny Fontaine. Now, there's an irony. Let's talk about that for a moment. There is an irony, okay? Everyone knows that was supposedly based on Frank Sinatra. I don't believe that Horse's Head that really happened, but something else, something else along those lines seemed to have happened. Now, basically, what it was is that Johnny Fontaine, Johnny Fontaine was a character in The Godfather, and he was an actor and a singer, and he was a friend of the mafioso and all this. And basically, because it was the Godfather's daughter's wedding, the Godfather couldn't refuse any, a request. So Johnny Fontaine comes along, and basically, cut a long story short, his career is going on a bit of a slide, and he's desperate to get a movie. He's desperate to get in a movie which is a non-singing, non-dancing. Because the fact is, this had similarities with Frank Sinatra, didn't it? Sinatra was a singer, a dancer, a superstar in the superstar actor in the late 40s and maybe into the 50s. But by the 1950s, he was starting to be perceived as a little bit lightweight. And the ironic thing is, the reason he was perceived to be a little bit lightweight is because the one thing he'd never really proved that he could do was act in a really dramatic role. He'd never really proved his acting potential. And funnily enough, the reason that he felt that he had to prove his acting potential was actually because Marlon Brando came along. Marlon Brando came along in the early 50s, A Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront, and all of a sudden he wowed people with his amazing, thespian skills. And people like Sinatra were starting to look like lightweight. And that's why Sinatra was desperate to get him in a movie where he could prove to the world that he could act and therefore revive his career. And that movie, now there's a lot of debate what movie that is, but I don't think there's any real question about it. That movie was wonderful, From Here to Eternity. It was a marvelous film. It was a war movie, with story of romance and infidelity and violence and all the rest of it. But he got his way. Frank Sinatra got his way. He got a supporting role in From Here to Eternity, and he won an Oscar for it, and that revived his career. So that was the story about it, about the horse's head, wasn't it? So I don't believe anyone jumped a horse's head in anybody's bed on behalf of Sinatra. But I think something happened. I think there's something. I'm not quite sure what it was. Anyway, here we go. Yogi Bear, Once Upon a Time in America. We'll talk about that movie. I know we'll talk about it now. That was a really ambitious movie made in the 1980s by Sergio Leone. Who obviously made the famous spaghetti westerns. It had the wonderful actors of James Woods and Robert De Niro in it. Somehow it didn't quite work for me, that movie. I mean, it's some people actually love that movie. They love it to bits. But I think it's overlong and it's slow. And what it does in, every scene that lasts 10 minutes, you think it could easily do it in 5 minutes. But, I have seen it a couple of times, and it is a fine movie. Okay, I'm going to go on to number 3 now. Okay, number 3. Number 3 is, of course, The Godfather Part 2. The Godfather Part 2. Now, this is a longer and more ambitious movie than the first one. And what is unusual about this is that this is the movie which more people than ever will incite that the sequel was actually better than the first one. The sequels are notoriously duff in comparison to the original, but most people almost unanimously say that The Godfather Part 2 was a better film than The Godfather Part 1. Right. I disagree with this. I don't think it was. I mean, the first Godfather movie was just so perfect. The story, everything about that film, from Marlon to Pacino, just about everyone else was just perfect about that film. Whereas The Godfather Part 2 tells the story of when Michael Corleone becomes the Godfather. It also has flashback scenes of the young Vito Corleone when he escapes from Sicily and learns his trade in Little Italy. And my own personal opinion is that the flashback scenes in The Godfather Part 2 are by far and away the best scenes in that movie, by a mile. Robert De Niro, I believe he won an Oscar for playing the young Vito Corleone. Absolutely magnificent, those flashback scenes. As for the rest of the movie, I'm not really convinced. I mean, the rest of the movie, the modern part of the movie, actually doesn't live up to expectation. It actually plays more like a soap opera when you get into, Michael and Diane Keaton's, Al Pacino's and Diane Keaton's, family stuff. And it starts to play out like a little bit like a soap opera. And as for Al Pacino, that man is a wonderful, wonderful actor. But I actually think he's a lot better when there's comedy involved. In this movie, The Godfather Part 2, I watched it a couple of years ago. On a DVD, really good copy of the movie, and I think it was an elongated version. It seemed to go on well over three hours. And Al Pacino in this movie, he's totally miserable. I don't think he smiles once in this movie. It's like being the mafioso chief has brought him nothing but misery. He goes through this entire movie with the expression of a man who has just received an enormous electricity bill. You know what I mean? Which he can't pay. He just looks so miserable in this movie. And it's hard to really care about him. So Godfather Part 2, amazing movie. But I think the flashback scenes are by a mile the best scenes in this movie. Whereas the rest of the movie plays out like a bit of a soap opera. I don't think it's in the same league. And I also thought with all the pileup of, murders at the end, it was like as if they were struggling to find an ending for this movie. I may be a lone voice, but I still maintain that the first Godfather movie, which had the magnificent Marlon, amongst other things, I still say that the first Godfather movie was the better. It was better than the second one anyway. Just my opinion, okay? Let me see. Lieutenant Columbo's Glass Eye, The Untouchables, what a fine movie that was. Nick Ross, Road to Perdition, another fine movie. It's proved that wonderful actor Tom Hanks, he was naturally likable actor, can even play an evil, vicious gangster. Road to Perdition's a fine movie, fine movie. Nick Ross, Leon the Professor. Oh, I love that movie. Luc Besson movie. Wonderful, terrific. With that Moroccan-born actor, whatever his name is. Wonderful stuff. Keith Floyd, probably not on your list, but Sexy Beast was decent. Ben Kingsley's performance is top notch, and of course Ray Winston was in that movie. Ben Kingsley, that little skinny bald-headed guy who played Gandhi, and now he's playing a vicious killer. Very versatile actor. Okay. Brian Street, The Untouchables, fine movie. McLaren F1 race, not a classic, but Legend was good. Absolutely. Kiki on the Trail says Godfather 2 was definitely the best of the Godfather trilogy. No. I don't believe it. I don't think you can beat the first one. Daniel Mills, Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. Awesome. Good old Tarantino way. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Mark Ollie, I think Fontaine was based on Sonata. It was. Yeah, like I said, the irony was that story actually probably was incited by Brando making quality dramatic acting in vogue. They all felt in those days they had to compete with Brando. Sean, have you seen The Outfit with Joe Don Baker? That's a good movie. It's a good movie. I don't think it's a classic, but it's a good movie. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna skip a little teensy weensy bit. Yeah, Mark Ollick. Sinatra used connections to get the part. It was definitely from here to eternity. Some people say other movies, but definitely no question about it. In UK, Carlito's Way is a classic for me. Maybe not a true gangster film. Well, I don't know. You've got Pacino in it, and it's a Brian De Palma movie. Okay, so let's see now. I'm going to skip through a little teensy beansy. Oh, bloody, bloody trolleys, spammers and all this kind of stuff. Okay, I'm going to just pull. I'm just going to do this. Okay, and so we talked about Get Carter and the two Godfather movies. At the top 10. Okay, now. After the Godfather, around at the same time, there was a little known movie called Mean Street. I'm actually not going to include that in the top 10 simply because, even though I really enjoyed it at the time, I think Mean Street was like a learning ground for people like, Scorsese, and it was not a perfect film. You're looking at that film nowadays, and it does look a little bit late. So even though Mean Street, if you've never seen it, and I know some people love gangster movies, but don't necessarily like that movie. It's worth a look. I don't think that Mean Street will be one of the 10 best of that era. Okay, so we've got it to like 1974 now, haven't we? 1974. So we had these two amazing Godfather movies, which are mega successful. So you would have thought everyone's going to be making gangster movies from now on. Wrong. Something strange happened. Let me just say that after those Godfather movies, when was the next great gangster movies? They weren't for many years to come. You had to go right into the 1980, about 10-year period, before anyone started making great gangster movies. Why was this? How is that the Godfather and the Godfather Part 2 were mega successful, and yet people weren't, big, studios weren't jumping on the bandwagon anymore. And gangster movies, there weren't really that many great gangster movies in about another 10 years. So why was that? The reason for that was fairly obvious, because in the mid-70s, something came back to cinema, which had been missing for quite a few years. Don't forget, in the late 60s, when, violence and all this became more adult, and X certificates were very much the fashion. In the mid-1970s, all of a sudden, family entertainment came back into the movies, because families have been drawn out of it with all the, the violence of all the, early 70s and all the adult stuff. And it was basically Spielberg and George Lucas. From the mid-70s to the later, Spielberg and George Lucas brought family entertainment back into the cinemas with Jaws, Star Wars, Close Encounters, whatever. And this is the reason why all of a sudden gangster movies, it feels like gangster movies were not so popular anymore, because all the big studios wanted to make family entertainment once again. So really, you have to go all the way for another 10 years before things started getting good again if you like gangster movies. Okay, let me see. Mark Ollick, Robert Stack was the perfect actor to play Elliot Ness. He was terrible. I love that. I love that series, that black and white series. It used to be on late at night, and it was a wonderful viewing. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Wonderful. Okay, let me see. Spitz Energy, nice to hear from you, mate. Departed, fantastic movie. But I mentioned that before. That's a great movie. I personally don't actually see that as a gangster movie. I know it's about gangsters, but I actually think that's a police movie. It's on the borderline. I think there's a difference. Let's see. Okay, Mark Ollick, I bet that Sol is ugly looking naked. It was a naked ex-wife. Whatever. All those bloody, they're on all the streams, all the streams. Even some of the news channels I've seen those things. Okay, so let me see now. We're gonna go up here. Okay, so let me see. Who have we got here? Yours Travels, Scarface next. Okay, Yours Travels. Now, like I said, from the glory of the Godfather movies, you have to wait another 10 years, really, before you've got really big-scale gangster movies. and all the way to 1984. First of all, before I use this movie, let me attempt the worst attempt at an Al Pacino, at an Al Pacino impression. How about this one? I love the scene when he's in the restaurant and he gets drunk and he says, "You need people like me because I'm the bad guy. You need people so you can point the finger at me and say, there's the bad guy." Okay, no, that didn't sound very much like Al Pacino, did it? But it was, of course, Scarface. Oh, my God, what an awesome movie that was. 1984, I do believe, or could have been 83. Now, this film was made by the wonderful, I think he's an amazing filmmaker, the wonderful Brian De Palma, who had also made one of the best horror movies of the 70s, Carrie. A lot of slow motion stuff and all this kind of stuff and graphic violence. This film, funnily enough, it was criticized. It was criticized for its level of graphic violence when it came out in, I think it was 83 or 84. And yet, really, if you actually look at it now, I mean, it's not particularly graphic in comparison to some of the stuff that you see nowadays. But Scarface was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful movie. It was, of course, the story of how Fidel Castro dumped a lot of his criminals. He sent a lot of people from Cuba, across to Florida, without telling the Americans that all these people had criminal records. It was all the people that they didn't want. Scarface is a wonderful, wonderful film. And like I said before, Al Pacino, I think that Al Pacino is a better actor when there's comedy involved, and it's a very frightening, very controlled, very chilling, but also very comic performance from Al Pacino, and he is absolutely amazing in this movie. He carries this film like a true superstar all the way from start to finish. Scarface he comes from Cuba. He moves to Florida. He quickly, in the words of as Tony Soprano would say, he wants a piece of the action. Some of us want a piece of the action. That's what Tony Soprano would say. This guy's called Tony Montana. He's a Cuban who goes to Florida. Before you know it, he gets involved in the drugs syndrome. It all gets very, very nasty, and his aim is to climb. I think he starts off washing dishes, and he ends up being a top level gangster living in a mansion. It's very, very graphic, but it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful film. What do you think of Scarface? Anyone think of Scarface? Let's see. Let me see now. Anyone think? What do you think of Scarface? Let's see. Scarface. David Coleman. Scarface was damn violent. It was criticized heavily. And that's why it got some negative reviews. It was criticized heavily for its graphic violence. But I think if you actually watch it now, it doesn't. I think there's a lot of movies around nowadays that are not that that are more violent than it. Another thing about Scarface, it's the soundtrack of this movie. The soundtrack was very, very 1980s. It sounded very, very much like Baywatch. I mean, this film's set in Florida, so there's a lot of glamorous locations. Michelle Pfeiffer is also in the movie, which helps. Wonderful Michelle Pfeiffer. But the filmmaker, Brian De Palma, is a fantastic film that made loads and loads of great films. And Scarface, it was that in the UK, Michelle Pfeiffer was only 19 in that. Really? I didn't know that. David, yeah, okay, we've had that comment, yeah. A nomad overseas. Yeah, I think Castro just emptied the prisons and sent them all to Florida. Yeah, funny enough, the film actually begins with a little snippet of Castro delivering a speech. And he basically says, they're no good to us. We don't need them. So he pulled a fast one, didn't he, Castro? Yeah, absolutely. Yoz Travels, that scene in the motel room with the chainsaw. Wow. Absolutely. It's so full of the most amazing scenes. I don't want to go into so much detail. This movie, what is its length? Is it 2.5 hours? Is it possibly 2 hours? It's about 2.5 hours long, this movie. Absolutely compelling. I mean, a couple of criticisms about Scarface is that first of all, his obsession with his sister is a little bit is a little bit iffy, and also, I mean, his ability to withstand so many gunshots is also a big question. It's an over the top movie. Scarface is unquestionably an over the top movie, but who cares? It's damn fine entertainment. And what endears you to Pacino, Tony Montana in this movie is that he starts off, you're on his side, man. You know that he's a villain and he could easily be a bad guy. But I won't tell you what happens towards the end. But an incident which involves a family, happens. Happens towards the end of the movie, and it actually shows him to be a whole human being. He won't go down the level of some evil drug dealers. He has actually got a heart. There's a line that he simply won't cross. If you've seen the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's see. My father loved the 1930s, Charlie Chan. I haven't seen them. I imagine they're bloody good. I think I've seen them many, many years ago, some of them. I think I've enjoyed those. Let me see. Okay, let me see. Scarface. Category copy, Scarface, great movie, Eddie. Great movie, Eddie. Absolutely. But this is interesting. Mark Oliver, we said we have Betamax in the 1970s. Okay. Now, this is because this 1980s, this was very, very, very much the video generation, wasn't it? I think films like Scarface, I don't know how many people were going to the cinema in the 90s. Adults. I think they'd lost an adult audience. But people watch movies everyone I know has ever seen Scarface, actually seen it on video. A lot of these movies may not have played too well at the box office, but they were big hits when they were released on video. Gorilla in Manila. I watched Scarface when I was about 16, and it instantly became my favorite movie. Okay, thank you. Absolutely. Delayed Dave. Great film, but violent. Just reflecting life. Absolutely. Pages just one. Scarface is well-spent movie. That's 3 hours. The storyline is smooth, and you not get bored. I mean, I've seen Scarface, 5 times. Probably seen about 5 times. Any movie that you will watch 5 times is worth seeing. But there's 2 stars in this movie. One of them was the wonderful Brian De Palma. He was a fantastic filmmaker. And, of course, Pacino. In fact, I would say, I think it's possibly Pacino's best ever performance. Like I say, he's got the comic element in it. Wonderful stuff, wonderful. Scarface, definitely one of the 10 best gangster movies of the last 50 years. Ricardo. Gangs of New York. Daniel Day-Lewis was outstanding. Absolutely. Gangs of New York is a fine Martin Scorsese movie. When was that made? Was that early 90s? Oh, no, sorry. Was that late 1990s or something? The first time I seen that movie, I thought it was a little bit tiresome. But then I did sit down and watch it on another occasion, and I thought it's a very, very good movie. The history of it, gangs in New York, the history and all that. It is fascinating stuff. It's not really a film that I would want to see again and again. It's I've seen it in its entirety once. I wouldn't really be keen to see it again and again, but it is a good movie. McLaren F1 race is more violent than an average town on a Saturday night after kicking out time. Yeah, absolutely. And lives are lost. Okay. David Coleman, Miami Vice was the best damn show they ever put on TV. We might just mention that later. Cats and Good Coffee. I had a co-worker that used to wear a Scarface t-shirt at work, and HR ended up telling him not to wear those violent t-shirts. Okay. Now let's just go through here. Here we go. Block user, timeout. Absolutely. Yeah, whatever. Let's see. David Coleman, Charlie Chan movies are the best. He was great. So funny. I'll have to watch some of that. I think I'd enjoy stuff like that. Let's see. Dave Litch, Ed, as a fan, I believe you're spreading yourself thin over too many live streams and channels. My anticipation of your appearance has gone down from 10 to about 2. Different topics, but less is more. Okay, fine, thank you. Paul Hoskin, I've watched The Sound of Music more than 5 times. You sad, sad person. The hills are alive with the sound of music. Oh, my God almighty. God, definitely not for me. Okay, let's have a little teensy-weensy look. I'm just going to, I think we've caught up here. I think we caught up here. Mark Oliver, Betamax was better. I mean, I didn't have a video on those days. I can't remember how I managed to see those movies. But Betamax soon became, outdated, didn't it? Became sort of outdated, and VHS was the thing. And then before you knew it, like videos were outdated. DVDs come along. Ivan, I still have my Scarface themed boxer shorts. Very, very nice too. Okay. Okay. So let me see. Okay, so we're gonna go. The 19, like you say, Scarface was the first really great gangster movie in about a 10-year period. And really, there was only one really other outstanding gangster movie in the 1980s. And they come out along a few years later. And funnily enough, that was made also by the wonderful Brian De Palma. It was the wonderful Untouchables. Now, this movie, the real star of this movie, it's got Kevin Costner, Sean Connery, Robert De Niro, Andy Garcia, that little guy. Can't remember what his name was. But the real star of this movie is actually the film itself. It is visually a really stunning movie. It's got a big, adventure look about it, and the cast, and it's a really rich movie. This is. It's one that you would sit down and watch from start to finish. You have to sit down, intently to really absorb every minute of this. Kevin Costner plays the old Robert Stack role, and he does a good job. He's more like a modern day James Stewart in this movie. Sean Connery plays a terrific part, absolutely terrific part. Robert De Niro plays Al Capone. Wonderful stuff. It's in terms of a film version of a legendary TV series. I don't think it's ever been. I don't think there's any film version of a TV series that would rank alongside this one. Let me see. Let's see. Mark Oliver, Betamax is more expensive and shorter playing time than VHS tapes, and the porn was sold on a VHS tape. I see. You live and learn, mate. You live and learn. You live and learn. Paul Hoskin, The Sting was good. Yeah, good movie. Good movie. Not exactly a gangster movie, not really, but good movie. Okay, let me see. Where do we go now? Who's this? Cats and Good Coffee. A Nomad Good Taste. I have a video on my YouTube channel of Night Drive in Bangkok. You're talking about Miami Vice now. So anyway, what does anybody think of the film version of The Untouchables? I mean, not many great gangster movies around in the 1980s. I mean, truly big scale. But this was really, really impressive. Sean Connery, he played such a marvelous part in it. Lots of the supporting actors. And basically what these guys are doing, they're out to take down Al Capone and his organization. No one else is standing up to Al Capone. So Elliot Ness comes along and, he's going to stand up to Al Capone. Wonderful, wonderful movie. And of course, it was made by Brian De Palma, who also made Scarface. But this got far better reviews simply because it was still a violent movie, but not as over the top violent as that one. Your Travels. I didn't rate The Untouchable. Very average. Oh no, lovely stuff. Love it. I thought it was a terrific movie. So anyway, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. That would be my fifth essential gangster movie. Like I say, it's not a really gritty gangster movie, but if you like a big scale adventure type gangster movie, I mean, you can't really fault this movie. There's nothing about this film which I would say, they needed to do this. They need to do this or that, or this was a flaw in the movie. I think it's quite a flawless movie, personally. David Coleman, I did not like the Untouchable movie at all. The TV show was 100% better. Okay, fine. Paul Hoskin, the bar girls play with my untouchables, you dirty man. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we've got The Untouchables. That was 1987. I thought it was a wonderful movie, and I would say that of the top 10 gangster movies of the last 50 years, we've had a variety of them, from Get Car to the to Scarface to The Untouchables. A bit of a variety. I wouldn't like it if all gangster movies were the same. Anyway, so The Untouchables definitely gets my vote anyway. Okay, so we've done 1970s, 1980s. Now, if you're a big fan of gangster movies, a really, really, really big fan of gangster movies, true raw-edged, slam-dunking, violent, ultra-violent gangster movies, well, the 1990s started with an absolute classic. It was, of course, the wonderful Goodfellas. My God almighty, what an amazing movie that was. You had Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci playing a little psycho, Paul Sorvino. I must admit, I always thought that Paul Sorvino, his part in this movie is the crime boss. I think his part was very, very, a little bit underplayed in that one. His character wasn't fully developed, just my opinion. But this story is told by Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta, who was recently died. Sorvino has recently died as well. Ray Liotta basically is a young lad who gets sucked into the gangster world in his neighborhood in I think it was Jersey or whatever it was. It was somewhere around there. And he gets sucked into it, and he absorbs the gangster life from being a young lad to being an older guy and being put in prison. Now, basically, I don't think I'm giving it away by saying like it's a story of the Supergrass. So it's basically it is a gangster movie, but whether it's an actual mafia movie, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Perhaps they weren't actually mafia. Maybe they were gangsters who wanted to be mafia. Because don't forget, Henry Hill, his background was Irish, and I think you've got to be Italian, haven't you? Really. Let's see. Yogi Bear. Yogi Bear, do you know that Al Capone started to use the dates on things, so the milk he supplied to many? Do you know that Al Capone started to use by dates on things? Let's see. Michael Giannis. Oh, yeah, amazing movie. Absolutely amazing movie. Absolutely. Okay, let's see. Where are we going to go here? Let's go back in the chat a little teensy bit. Mark Collins, Betamax was better quality. I never actually had the pleasure to Betamax. I never actually had the pleasure to Betamax. But don't think in the 1980s, I don't think we even had the video, come to think of it. But let's see. Lol, I remember hearing that Henry Hill in real life kept having to get moved to new witness protection areas as he kept getting plastered and shouting about this stuff. He did have an alcohol problem, Henry Hill, and later. I've seen an interview with him. Why he was able to come out of the shadows in later life, Henry Hill, is because because Jimmy died. Jimmy, the gangster boss, who he basically, grassed up. I won't give too much of it away, but Jimmy, basically, threatened his life, and Henry Hill had to become a supergrass, basically. But I did see an interview with him many years later, where he, when he admitted that he was an alcoholic, he said he doesn't like to be sober, and all the money that he earned from Goodfellas by selling his story, I think that ended. He squandered that, didn't he? I don't know if Henry Hill's still alive. Let me see. Michael Powell, Goodfellas 2 story, just amazing. Absolutely. I mean, the thing about Goodfellas, I mean, it's 2.5 hours of totally compulsive view. It's an extremely violent movie, but it's one of those movies that it's so well played by the actors that it's easy to fall into. It is a very, very easy film to watch. It's the type of movie where you could wander into a friend's house and he just happens to have Goodfellas on the TV, and even if you if you watch Goodfellas from halfway, you kind of sucked into the movie. It just pulls you in. It was such a powerful movie. Michael Janaeus, you have to be 100% Sicilian, otherwise you can be made as a good fella. Okay, fine, thank you. Let me see, okay. Mark Ollick, okay, okay. Well, thanks for coming along, Mark. Anyway, thank you for coming along. Let's see. Who's this? Boatmonger. If you want to watch good series, you go Italian with subs. Come on, don't know that one. Don't know that one. Poppycorn, Ed, I know you are covering the last 50 years, but these are gangster movies with the classic Cagney, Bogart, Raft, Edgy. I don't know enough about those. I mean, I'm familiar with all of those. But, you know, I watch the movies in the modern because it's my generation, really. Let me see. A Nomad Overseas, Steady Eddie Live. You'd imagine me now. Look up a dude called the Iceman. Think he was called Kolinsky. Was hitman working for Mafia. Total spacer, but really interesting story. Okay, fine. Never heard of that one. So Goodfellas, wonderful movie, absolutely wonderful. A triumph for Martin Scorsese. It was one of the greatest filmmakers of his time, without doubt. You know, it's an extremely violent movie, but it's so easy to follow. It's sometimes, you know, if I have one criticism, in some ways it's too, you know, it's too watchable. It's too easy to watch. But then again, I've seen it about 5 times. It is undoubtedly a movie to see and see again. Okay. So Goodfellas, 1990s started with a bang. Let me see. Michael Janaeus, Eddie, do you like True Romance, early 90s? I've seen that. I like that movie. I don't think it's one of the top 10 best gangster movies, but I like the movie. It is a good movie. Gary Oldfield was in it and somebody else. I can't really remember. I have seen it. Let's see. David Coleman, Henry Hill is dead. Okay, fine. Michael Powell, the robbery take place at Idlewild Airport and now JFK. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so 1990s started with an absolute classic. An absolute classic, Goodfellas, marvelous movie. You can even watch that now, and it's even though you know what's going to happen. That's the problem with it. You have a tendency to watch it too many times. But the next really great gangster movie came about 5 years later. And this was also a Scorsese movie. It was the wonderful Casino. And this was a bigger, more ambitious, really fine-looking film set in Las Vegas about the rise of the casinos. Casinos being in the hands of the mafia in the 70s, and then they eventually become a little bit more sophisticated than that. So let me see. Okay, let me see. Nearly 90 years ago. Okay, so the thing about Casino, it had the cast of Robert De Niro. It also had the wonderful Sharon Stone, who played a great part. It had Joe Pesci in the movie. Who else did it have? You know, a few other quite well-known faces. Martin Scorsese made this movie. It was absolutely terrific. Really quite an ambitious gangster movie with quite a big budget as well. Very, very good-looking film. It probably wasn't as violent as Goodfellas, but it wasn't far behind anyway. But the thing about Casino is that this movie actually received a lot of hostile reviews when it came out in 1995. The reason that it received a lot of hostile reviews is simply because a lot of people felt that Martin Scorsese, who was a really progressive filmmaker, was repeating himself. It felt that he was repeating himself. People were starting to question: can Martin Scorsese actually make a great movie without using explicit violence? It seemed that all his attempts to make movies without using violence were not really that successful. I mean, this was, after Goodfellas, another gangster movie. And what annoyed a lot of people about this, even cheekily brought Joe Pesci in again to play a character that was basically exactly the same as the one he played in Goodfellas. I mean, Joe Pesci played a brilliant part in that. But now he's just playing the same character, only with a different name. So a lot of people felt Casino was repeating itself. It was Scorsese repeating itself. In fact, I seem to recall that Barry Norman, the legendary Barry Norman, actually described Casino as a bit of a mess. I mean, it didn't tell the story completely the way it should have been. Let's see. Who's this? Ivan, the scene when Joe Pesci kills the guy with the pen. The scene when Joe Pesci kills the guy with the pen. Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful stuff. But he was basically, this is Scorsese repeating himself. People were starting to say that Scorsese can never be regarded as one of the truly great filmmakers, simply because he can't really make a movie without using explicit violence. So Cats and Good Coffee. I like Casino. I like Casino as well. Paul Hoskin. I feel like a 39-year-old. Okay, well, don't bother with my wife because she's well older than that. Okay. Poppycorn. Casino. When they put the guy's head in the vice and his eyes popped. Urgent. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, so did I just say a moment ago that Casino was not as violent as Goodfellas? It wasn't far behind. Sandra Taylor, just watch the film 13 Lives, film made for the Thai football team saved from a cave. I've seen that one advertised. David Coleman, a big actress in Hollywood, was just burst up in a car crash. Yeah, let's see. And Nomads Overseas. Heard very sage advice. Okay, we've got that comment anyway. So, like I say, Casino was, had a lot of critics simply because they felt Scorsese was repeating himself and he wasn't really progressing as the legendary filmmaker that he was. It was sort of same old, same old. But if you look back at this movie now, almost 30 years later, not far off 30 years later, it is a terrific, entertaining movie. It's very, very watchable. It's very intelligent. De Niro plays a great part, playing the casino boss. He was very, very intelligent, and he's useful to the mafia because he's got the knack of picking winners for them on the horses and all of that. Wonderful movie, wonderful movie. Yours Travels. I go to the Peppermill Diner in Las Vegas all the time. It's a great place. Okay, good for you, mate. Good for you. Okay, so I'm gonna remove that one there, and I think at this moment in time, it's squeaky door time. Back in a minute. Okay, I'm back. Let me see. Back to the comments. I'm having a Carlsberg export tonight. Lovely stuff. Beautiful. Oh my God. Oh. So what have we got now? David Coleman, Anna Haight was just being bad in the car crash. I don't actually know who that is. But it sounds very, very bad. Michael Powell, Joe Pesci, a great actor, also good comedy. Yeah, my cousin Vinny. Who's this? Norman's Overseas. Look at the George Carlin bit online that relates to Joe Pesci. They're still brilliant after all of these years. Okay, fine, thank you. Who's this? Whatever. Okay, some smutty comments going on here. Some smutty comments going on here. Anyway, we're going to do another movie. Okay, so up to now we done Get Carter, The Two Godfathers, Scarface, Untouchables, Goodfellas, and Casino. So there's 3 more movies left. Yes, 3 more movies. And Bernard Purcell, Once Upon a Time in America was great. Yeah, I think we mentioned that before. It is a good movie, that, but it's very. I think it's an acquired taste. I do know some people who worship that movie, and I've met people who say that that's their favorite film of all time. And that was another film that not many people went to the cinema to see. It seemed to be a bigger hit on video in the 1980s. I just thought it was a little bit slow, for me, to be honest with you. I've seen it, once, and it's not. Well, I might have even seen it twice, but it's not something I'd watch too long. Okay, so 1990s. Okay, right. Somebody come along in the 1990s who really, really, really rocked the film industry. Somebody who did gangster movies only in a way that he'd never really been done before. It was, of course, the wonderful Quentin Tarantino. And this was his masterpiece, Pulp Fiction. It wasn't the first movie. I mean, Reservoir Dogs. It was an excellent movie, sort of low budget bank robbery movie, which was made a couple of years early. But when this movie came along, everyone, even film people who were not really interested in gangster movies, were won over by this. It was such a clever movie, told in flashback. Basically, you've got a couple of hitmen, John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson. And and basically the movie's told in flashbacks. It's a gangster movie. I don't really need to tell you the story because there's a variety of stories going on here anyway. But it's a gangster movie with a definite. And what was distinctive about it is basically Tarantino's own dialogue was very, very distinctive. I mean, he was talking about cheeseburgers in Paris and all this kind of stuff. And it was a very, his style was very, very, was very, very distinctive. Who's this? A Nomad Overseas, Bring Out the Gimp. Yeah, that was a strange episode. All kinds of different episodes in this movie. Yours Travels. I didn't class Pulp Fiction as gangster. Well, the main protagonists in it were gangsters. When it was sort of. I'd say it was a gangster. It's not a police thriller. Let's see. David Coleman, you are right. Let's see. Michael Janaeus, great movie. Absolutely. And it was a hugely successful movie as well. In fact, it was possibly, I would imagine it's probably the most successful gangster movie since the Godfather movies. This film was really, really big at the box office. It took a lot of money at the box office, and it won awards and all kinds of stuff. It revived John Travolta's career. It brought him back into the spotlight. It was a really good movie. I've watched this movie a couple of times. It's not a film I would watch again and again and again like I would some of the others. But yeah, comments. Michael Powell renewed John Travolta's movie career. Yes. Paige just one. You forgot Bruce Willis in it. Bruce Willis. I mean, Bruce Willis was so was so impressed with Tarantino's first movie, Reservoir Dogs, that he really, really, really wanted to be in this one. So Uma Thurman played a great part. Harvey Keitel, of course, it was quite amazing. It's all full of funny scenes. And what it is about this movie, something's going to happen, but you're never quite sure what's going to happen next. A lot of it is told in flashback. So things happen, like one of the characters gets shot dead, and then later reappears in the movie. And sometimes it can be a little bit hard to take that. Okay. Nick Ross, the accountant. Do you know? So is that Ben Affleck in that movie? A thriller movie called The Accountant. I think I've seen that. I think it's quite a good movie. I can't remember much about it. But what a strange title. I mean, for a thriller movie, The Accountant. What a bloody bland name. I mean, what next? The chef, the postman. Is that going to be the next gangster? What a strange bland title for a movie. Okay, Michael Janaeus, Bruce Willis' girlfriend. Where's my Honda? She was very cute. Okay, Life of Razor. Hey Eddie, yeah, absolutely. Yours Travels. Yes, The Accountant was a great movie. Ricardo, Sexy Beast with Ben Kingsley, Ray Winston, and Ian McShane. I think I've seen that. Well, I've seen that movie. I can't remember much about it. Nick Ross, he was the accountant for drug scams. Okay, fine. So, Pulp Fiction, an absolute smash hit of a movie. I think personally, everything that Tarantino has done since has been a little bit disappointing. I'm not actually a fan of Tarantino. I like Reservoir Dogs. I like this movie, Pulp Fiction. But the fact is, he went on to make films like Jackie Brown and other, and his films became very, very slow. And I think he become a little bit wrapped up in himself, really, with his movies. Very, very slow. But Pulp Fiction, you know, it's got to be regarded as one of the great gangster movies. It was a hugely successful movie. It put gangsters back on the map, and a fine movie. Can't really say more than that. Okay, so what else have we got? Yours Travels, no, Dust Some Dawn was a classic. See, that's when he started making movies, well, Mexican vampires and this kind of stuff. Let's see. Catigo Coffee, Tarantino admitted copying the style from Fallen Angels, hates key movies. Okay. Sandra Taylor, 13 Lives, director Ron Howard. I've never seen that one. Ron Howard from Happy Days fame. Okay. Nick Ross, Scario, Drugs Gangs. I haven't actually seen that. I don't actually think I've seen that one. Okay, so I think 8 movies into it, right? So we haven't actually done a foreign language movie yet, have we? Okay, so let's be totally international. There was a blinder of a movie that came out, I think it was I think it was around about 2002 it came out. A foreign language movie that was a real belter of a movie, the kind of thing that you may start watching and this is going to be a little bit laborious and depressing, but actually is an absolutely marvelous movie, and I actually believe is one of the 10 best gangster movies of the last of the last 10 years. Go all the way to Brazil for The City of God. Absolutely amazing movie set in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro. Absolutely wonderful movie. Anyone seen this? Lieutenant Colombo, City of God, absolutely. Has anyone seen this film? I've seen this about 3 times. This film, and it's over 2 hours long. Maybe be 2.5 hours long. But it is a movie set in the favelas, the slums of Rio de Janeiro. It's you may tend to think, you may have heard good things. You think, I'll watch this, but it's going to be a little bit laborious to get to. But very, very soon, this movie pulls you in. It's quite a hypnotic movie, and it's got tons of violence and tons of violence. It really is a fine movie. Michael Janaeus, yeah, great movie. Well done, Eddie. Okay. Now, the thing, when you're watching this film, it's basically about, favela boys. And one of them, goes into drugs, and the other becomes wants his ambition is to be a photographer. I think it's based on a true story. Well, it is based on a true story. He wants to become a photographer, and basically he gets in touch with the people who live in Rio de Janeiro, and they've never been able to go into the favelas. And they say to him, "Can you get photos?" He says, "I actually lived it." He actually lives in the favelas. This guy. It's a very scary movie. It's what would you expect? It's a ruthless movie. You see some of these gangsters shooting dead, children. It's horrible stuff, but it's realism. It's a savage. I mean, you've got police shooting dead drug dealers. It's a very, very savage movie. Actually, when you were watching this movie, it is actually a little bit based on Goodfellas. There's an element of Goodfellas in there about somebody observing the gangsters in the hood. Nick Ross, City of God, yes. I went to see the place myself. I've been at the favelas. I have. I've been to the favelas of Rio de Janeiro. I went on a guided tour with a little tour company when I was in Rio. And it was what was it? Yeah, with the guy. What was it? Hasina? Was it? Rossina or Hasina, however you pronounce it. Yeah, I went into that one. I went into quite a few different fellas. Fascinating stuff. Nick Ross, Brazil is overrated. Oh, I thought Brazil was a wonderful country. Category Coffee. Eddie, I think Nick Ross means Cesario. It's a brilliant movie that I recommend you several times to watch. It's about Mexican cartels. Brutal. Like, okay, I'll try and check that one out. Yes, Travels. Cesario. Okay. Got to check that one out. Hey, some Steven Seagal movies could be listed as a gangster movie, and he has lots of good. I like some of Steven Seagal's movies. He's not necessarily the kind of guy that you'd want to know, is he? Bit of you. I mean, the thing is, Steven Seagal. I've seen an interview with him once, and he's only got one expression, and the interviewer said, "Would you fancy doing other type of movies like?" Romance movies, and he sat there in his ponytail, some of that. And the interviewer said to him, "How about comedy? Would you like to do comedy?" No. Now, I thought, funny enough, I didn't think Steven Seagal would do any comedy, but I like a lot of his movies, I must admit. Sandra Taylor, I'll put City of God on my list. If I lose any sleep, Eddie, I blame you. Put it on your list. Absolutely well worth a couple of hours of your time. Michael Janaeus, very violent movie, very disturbing, great movie. Watch it, absolutely. Michael Janaeus, Once We're Warriors. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. No, but overseas, I've seen some genuinely horrific vids from Brazil online. To be honest, I don't think I'll ever visit. People literally being taken. Oh, God Almighty, no, absolutely. Okay, so that is the foreign language movie. Honestly, you may think if you don't like foreign language movies, bear with that movie. You may think of it's about the favelas and gangsters in the favelas and poverty and all that, and violence and police and corruption and all that. If this is going to be depressing, this is. When you first start watching it, as soon as you get into that movie, you will find that is really, really good. There's even some characters that are similar to those in Goodfellas. Like, I believe there's one called Little Z. He's like the Joe Pesci psycho of the movie. It's City of God. Absolutely, totally recommended, and for any reason, well worth a look. Okay, so let me see now. What have we got now? Let me see. So I've done 9 movies. Anything else? Yours travels, Eddie. You haven't seen Once We're Warriors. Wow, call yourself a movie buff. One of the most famous movies ever. I might have seen it, but I'm familiar with that title. I may have seen it. Anyway, it's still, people in the chat anyway. It's Saturday night. It's just after 11 o'clock. It's about 10 past 11 o'clock. Let me see. And Nomad Overseas, Once We're Warriors is a brilliant film about the Maoris in NZ. Main actor is the lad that played Bob Fett. Really good film. Okay. Here's somebody. Who's this? Philip Mulville is mentioning Guy Ritchie's flicks. Okay. Now, if a film is really only as good as its director, and I'm not a fan of Guy Ritchie, I just don't really like his style. No, particularly, I just don't really like his style. Of course, you've got Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, which is, I think Jason Statham's in that movie, and some other popular British actors. But it's not a film I would want to see again. I don't really, from what I've seen of Guy Ritchie's movie, he's quite a well-known name, and he married Madonna and all this kind of stuff. But I'm not a fan of it. A fan of his films, funnily enough, Guy Ritchie. And another one I'm not a fan of. Nobody's mentioned that movie Heat, with the Michael Mann movie with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. That was made in the 90s. That's a gangster movie made in the mid-90s. And I actually think that movie is very, very overrated, personally. It's a good movie, but I think Michael Mann, I think he was the same person who was responsible for Miami Vice. And his style of filmmaking, I find very, very bland and very pretentious. I thought Heat was really quite an overrated movie, which is why I haven't really included it. Funnily enough, I watched a film on Amazon last night, which was a heist movie, which is a terrific movie, which I will review sometime. And I noticed that all the reviews for it, people were saying it's, it's a bit of it's like Heat, only not as good and whatever. Wait a minute, I thought that movie I watched last night was better than Heat. So I'll tell you about that one some other time. So anyway, who's this? Let's see. McLaren F1 Eddie, can we do a top 10 TV series from decade to decade? No shows, proper shows like Z Nation. Okay, we'll see what we can do. Let me see now. Okay, Cats and Good Coffee. Yours to Garden Society, the shooting scene in the border is just legendary. Okay, I've got to see that movie. I've got to see it. Vinnie Jones, of course, was in Lock, Stock as well. And so was that massive street fighter. What was his name? The Governor. He was in. He was a very, very charismatic actor. He was a legendary street. He died very, very young, didn't he? 49 years of age. Didn't live long. Okay, let me see. Doctor Strange, hi Eddie, it's American Gangster with Denzel Washington being mentioned. Yeah, it has a fine movie, but I don't think it is one of the 10 best of the last 50 years. And Nomad Overseas, I think he just got loads of attention and accolades because it was the first film where Pacino and De Niro were paired together on screen. That's interesting, because you know what? I watched that movie a couple of years ago, and they don't actually appear together. There's a scene where, I think it's in a restaurant, where Pacino and De Niro are opposite each other on the table. If you actually watch that movie, they weren't actually filmed together. It's like as if they were filmed separately, or maybe they didn't like each other at the time. But watch the movie to see what I mean. But no, I think Heat is quite an overrated movie, to be honest with you. David Coleman. Next time let's talk about war movies. That's more up my alley. That doesn't play well with advertisers, by the way. I've actually got a video on my list about where an old video about the Vietnam War when me and a friend visited the Cu Chi tunnels and all that kind of stuff. And YouTube won't even put any adverts whatsoever on it. They don't allow any of that. So war is a touchy subject, really. Okay. There we go. Okay. Nick Ross, you've forgotten James Cagney. I'm doing the modern era. I'm talking about the last 50 years. I know James. Okay. For those who are upset that I missed out James Cagney, a quick James Cagney impression. Top of the world, Mark. Top of the world. Happy now? White Heat. Okay. What's that one? Cats and Good Coffee, Training Day in New Jack City involved gangs too. Decent movies, okay. I'll tell you a very, very good movie from that era was Boys in the Hood. That's a good one. Yours, Chavez, that's the whole point of Heat. They only see each other at the end. Absolutely. I thought Heat, a little bit overrated, that one. David Coleman, Steven Seagal movies are all fake. Just like his real life. I like Steven Seagal. I like Steven Seagal. And Nomad Overseas, I'm not a big fan of Ben Affleck as an actor, but he's directed some decent stuff. The Town is an excellent film. Have you not seen it? Okay, fine, thank you. Martin Birchall, do you live near Liverpool or Southport? Nowhere near either of them, mate. That's up north. I'm down south. Tom Streeter, have you watched the TV series Peaky Blinders? I watched the first series of Peaky Blinders, and I thought it's a good series. A little teensy-weensy bit depressing, that one for me. I've never actually watched the second series, funnily enough. Gorilla in Manila, Training Day is massively underrated. Denzel Washington is brilliant in it. Okay, fine. Patriotist, Heat was boring. I'd rate it 6 out of 10. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I've seen the movie from start to finish. It's a long time before I actually got around to seeing that movie, but I watched it from start to finish, and I did think it was overrated. And it's not a film I'd really be queuing up to see again. Let me see. Okay, let's see if we can. Who's that? Roger Maroney, like Wise Guy. Am I right in thinking that Goodfellas was originally supposed to be called Wise Guys, but some of the somebody else made that movie before, so they had to use a different title. Michael Janaeus, how about Bad Lieutenant in 1992, starring Harvey Keitel, Gangster, Corrupt Cop? I think one of the great movies, very raw. Now, I'll tell you what, I never actually managed to catch up with that one, but I did see the the remake of it with Nicolas Cage, and that is a fine movie. Nicolas Cage is such a damn good actor, and that is a the remake of Bad Lieutenant, or Lieutenant, if you want to pronounce it like that, is terrific with Nicolas Cage in it. Absolutely superb. Absolutely superb. Paul Hoskin, if you were in a gangster movie, what character would you play? Well, I wouldn't want to play a gangster. I wouldn't want to play a gangster. I'd probably be the cop who's hunting them down. I'd be Elliot Ness. I'd be Elliot Ness. That's who I'd be. I'd be Elliot Ness. Ethan Hutt, Paul would play a bar stool. Okay. David Coleman, a lot of important stuff on GB News. Okay. Joe Hart, The Long Good Friday. Somebody mentioned that before, The Long Good Friday. It was about 1980. I think I'm right in saying, am I right in saying that The Long Good Friday was originally supposed to be a TV drama, but it was deemed too violent, so they made it into a movie with Bob Hoskins. The Long Good Friday is an excellent British crime thriller, but I think it's a little bit overrated, Percy. It's nowhere near in the league of Get Carter. I mean, Bob Hoskins plays a good part. It's a good movie. It is a good movie, The Long Good Friday, but I don't think it's one of the best films ever, really, to be honest with you. Farang Travels, Nicolas Cage, a good actor. Okay, let's see. Paul Hoskin, I would play the owner of a strip club. Probably, yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Okay, we've done 9 movies. We're gonna go out on a bang. We're gonna come very, very much up to date. The last few years, anyway. Let's see. Yogi Bear, Mona Lisa was another one. Not a. I don't think that was really good. Soul Jack, I just got it, so probably already mentioned gangster movies. The Warriors, American Made. Only the Goodfellas out of them. The French Connection, I don't really see that as a gangster movie. That's a police movie, that is. But I'll tell you what. Last, but by no means least, a movie from very, very recent years, a fantastic movie which you really, really should watch. A excellent movie, absolutely excellent British crime thriller. It is the one, the only Legend, okay? The up-to-date movie of the Cray twins with Tom Hardy, that absolutely amazing actor, Tom Hardy, playing both Ronnie and Reggie. He plays both parts, and he is simply magnificent in both roles. Just going to have a little look now. Performance was a gangster movie. It's weird and wonderful. Yeah, I like that film, funnily enough. Let's see. Nick Ross, ahead of his time. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, before you talk about performance, yeah. Let's see. McLaren F1 race, yes. Yours Travels. Yours Travels, no. Farang Travels, never heard of it. It's came out a few years. Well, you've heard of Tom Hardy. He's one of the best British actors of the modern day. McLaren F1 race, I said Legend, absolutely. I think this is a magnificent movie. You know, there's so much being told about the Cray twins, the legendary London gangsters from the East End and all that. I mean, there's so many documentaries and so many reports and all this kind of stuff that you feel like you really, really don't need to see anything more about the Cray twins. It's all being done. But the fact is, there's 2 notable movies about the Cray twins. There's the Spandau Ballet version, which came out around about 1990 or 91. Yeah, around about 1990. And there's this one, okay? There is no comparison between those 2 movies. Let me just say that the Spandau Ballet version with Gary and Martin Kemp, they weren't bad. They played a good part as Ronnie and Reggie, even though they're not very good actors. But that film was so patronised. It was a watchable movie. It was just simply called The Craze. It was a watchable movie, but it was so bloody patronised. It made the Cray twins out to be like Robin Hood heroes, even when they committed terrible acts of violence. The movie justified the violence because the other guy pulled a knife out on him first, so it was justified. It was a real, and then there was the all this mythical stuff with doves and all a load of rubbish. I mean, a bit of a silly film, really. That film, The Craze, but this one was made about 3 or 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And this is a terrific movie. It does not patronize this movie. At the center of this movie, you have got that amazing actor, Tom Hardy. He plays both the twins. He plays them as entirely different and very, very distinctive characters. And my God, that man is a wonderful actor. He deserved an Oscar. In fact, he should have been given 2 Oscars for this movie. I think, from what I've seen, I don't think there's ever been a film where an actor has played 2 twins to such effect. He really creates 2 wonderful characters here. And the movie is worth seeing for that alone. Let me see. Okay. Who's this? Nomad overseas. Does the Crying Game count? It should be mandatory watching for anyone visiting Battaya to make sure they don't. That was a good movie there. Cats and Good Coffee. I have to watch Legend then. Terrific. If you're going to watch anything about the Cray twins, watch Legend. Absolutely. Jim Jets. Great movie, Legend. Michael Janaeus. Great film. Bernard Purcell. Didn't see it. One of the strange things about this one, why is it called Legend? I think it's got the wrong title, really, because if you just seen that title, Legend, you wouldn't know that's a movie about the Cray twins. Maybe it may have got more recognition if it had a different title, funnily enough. Paul Hoskin, not to be confused with I Am Legend. Yes, okay. Farang Travels, thank you for that super chat. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Let me see. Let me just go up here a little teensy-weensy bit. Okay. Yours Travels, it had some great comedy scenes. Tom played a good part, but it wasn't a great movie. Sorry. You have your title to your opinion, but one thing, this is miles better than the first, because like I say, the first Cray Twins movie was patronized. This one, these guys, these are gangsters. They're not nice guys. I mean, these are violent criminals, and they were probably prepared to hurt innocent people as well as guilty ones. They were not Robin Hood heroes, and this film really, really brings that out. I mean, Reggie is the stronger character out of him. He knows what he's doing, whereas Ronnie is basically the liability. I mean, the film portrays him as having mental issues. But it's a fantastic film. Iron Till fight scene was fantastic. Absolutely, absolutely. The Clan F1 race, the basement scene in the kitchenette, bloodbath, absolutely fantastic. Michael Janaeus, thank you for that super chat. Thank you for that, mate. Cheers. It's very, very kind of you. Michael Janaeus, to watch Bad Lieutenants and Once Were Warriors, please will enjoy. Okay, thank you. Thanks for your recommendation, mate. Thanks for your recommendation. Who's that? Yoz Travels. Thanks for that super chat. Thank you. It's been a good chat tonight. Don't forget Cesario and Warriors. Cesario, you will enjoy. Okay, I'll have to watch that. I will have to watch that. Another Mexican theme movie that I would have to catch up on. What is it? El Camino. Is it the follow-up to Breaking Bad, the movie version of it or whatever? I've heard some mixed reviews about that, but I've seen that advertised the other night. Okay, Cesario, I think I like that. Thank you for that, mate. Okay, McClan F1, Ronnie was off his head. Okay, absolutely, absolutely. Category Coffee, Eddie has the best community of mongers of Southeast Asia lovers. Thank you for that, mate. Who's this? HW. Eddie, have you seen Detective Debbie Does Towers? Never caught up on that one, never caught up on. Farang Travels, you really know your movie stuff, Ed. Okay, fine, thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that. So that's the top 10 movies. This movie, Legend. I think they got the wrong title. It would have got more fame if they'd have chosen a different title. Because really, if you'd just seen that title, if you were in America, you wouldn't necessarily know what that film's about. But I say once again, Tom Hardy, I mean, he's a magnificent actor, and he's really, really the best British actor around of this era. He plays not one but two absolutely amazing parts in this movie. It's not a patronising movie like the awful Spandau Ballet version. This is a real movie. It tells it like it is. I exhort you to see it. If you haven't caught up with it yet, have a look at it. Paige just one Pusher movies. I recommend stars Mads Mikkelsen. I don't know that one. Yours Travels. Eddie, are you on with Peter tomorrow? Yeah, I'll be on with Peter tomorrow about just after 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, something like that. I'll be on Thailand Bound's channel tomorrow, and we'll be having a little bit of. I like appearing on other people's chats because they do all the work. I can just sit around and drink beer and they can do all the work. So yeah, that's tomorrow night. Daniel Mills, Falling Down is a fantastic movie. I always feel like that when I go in Burger King. Cats and Good Coffee. Eddie Society was not really a Mexican movie, just the name of the plot. It is American and with well-known actors in it. I got to check it out. David Coleman, Legends is one of the best movies I ever seen about the crates. I think mean the craze, but yeah, absolutely. Farang Travels, I will check it out. Okay. Was a good film. ID was a good film. Yes, I was you and Peter get on well. Yeah, Falling Down, great movie. Okay, so we've done 10 best essential gangster movies. Now, there's lots of other movies which I know people have mentioned. Which people have mentioned along the way. Feels like The Long Good Friday, American Gangster, Mean Streets, Once Upon a Time in America, and they're all great movies. I don't think they quite make it into the top 10. For me, it's only a personal choice, but the 10 movies that I've shown you, I actually think that they are the essential top 10 gangster movies of the last 50 years. Okay? So anyone else? Push It is a Danish gangster movie series. Highly recommend. Thank you for that. Kipax, 10 best posters. Well, I named the 10 best, and they're all called Anissa Kate. Oh, my God almighty. Okay, so we've been on for an hour and 35 minutes. This has been something different. It's been something different. I haven't been bitching about other YouTubers or anything like that. I mean, do something teensy-weensy, a little bit different. Remember, this is the Steady Eddie live channel. The other channel, the main channel, that's the one where every Wednesday night we'll talk about the travel issues. But that's what we talk about travelers. But on this channel, we talk about other things. It's relaxed, very, very easy going. And tonight we've had a little bit of a laugh. Okay, Frank Travers got to go, and my 7-stone Thai wife is waiting for me. Okay, nice for you to come along. McLaren F1 race. Where's Lisa tonight? She's probably knocking off Paul Hoskin. Okay, David Coleman. The other gang at the time was just as bad. What they call the Richardsons? Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I think this. I don't like all the mythology around the craze and all this kind of stuff. I mean, they were probably very, very nasty people, you know. But the thing is, if you're going to watch one craze movie, watch that one, Legend. Don't watch the bloody Spandau Ballet version. Yours Travels has been great tonight, Ed. Cheers, buddy. Okay, fine. Thank you. That's nice for you to come along. Okay, so I'm going to finish this one up now. Anyway, it's been great to have you along. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll talk about movies on another. On this channel, we'll talk about. We'll talk about a variety of subjects, whatever goes. We haven't really talked much about politics recently, and basically we got a couple of Muppets who were aiming for number 10 Downing Street. Let's have a little bit of aiming for number 10 Downing Street, and you got a woman there who's I don't know. I'll pass me comments on them some of the time anyway. Okay, David Coleman. The cops tried to stitch up the craze. That's all shown in that movie. Cats and Good Coffee. Paul Huskin is Gambian in what counts. Kip, actually, watch this in the morning. UFC and say, okay, good for you, mate. Anyway, yours travels. I will definitely enjoy the politics chat. Okay, what do you make of what's her name? What's her name? What is her name? Lizzie Trust or Lizzie something, whatever. Anyway, listen, Michael Today's. Look forward to the next one. Good night, all. Okay, so let's see now. Let's see. I'm going to finish off here. Thanks for coming along, guys. We chatted about gangster movies. Thanks for some of your suggestions. A couple of the movies that people have mentioned, Cesario, stuff like that. I'll probably have to check those out myself. I really, thanks for your recommendations. And all I can say is thanks for coming along. Have a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow night on Thailand Bounds channel. And cheers anyway, okay? Have a lovely evening, guys. Cheers.